Caitlin Clark's latest offseason job isn't just a business win. It's a shot across the league's bow. While the WNBA battles declining ticket sales and internal disputes, Clark is signing five-figure speaking deals and building an empire without needing a single minute on the court. The most telling reaction? Aya Wilson's rising tension. She's watching the spotlight shift, fast, and not because of basketball.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Clark is proving that influence, not stats, is the new currency in women's sports. And for stars rooted in the old model, it's a hard truth to swallow. What Clark is doing off the court represents a power shift the league was never ready for. She's bypassing the WNBA's gatekeeping entirely, showing that true leverage now lives with the athletes who know how to move culture. Meanwhile, players like Wilson are left trying to assert relevance within a system that no longer guarantees it. Clark isn't just thriving. She's quietly restructuring the power pyramid in real time. And the league's inability to adapt is starting to look like its biggest weakness. Caitlin Clark has done something the WNBA wasn't ready for. She stepped off the court and into a corporate spotlight, and instead of waiting for the league to build her image, she built her own. Her offseason wasn't spent fading into the background or preparing quietly for next season. She went straight into high-paying speaking gigs, commanding six-figure fees, speaking to powerful business leaders, and expanding her brand on her terms. That alone should have been enough to grab headlines. But what it really did, it cracked the WNBA's entire power structure. Because now, there's a new blueprint in women's sports. And Clark wrote it without waiting for permission. Her ability to go from rookie to global brand in a single season has sparked tension across the league, and the pressure is hitting players like Aya Wilson the hardest. Wilson has been the WNBA's reliable face for years. She's put in the time. She's won the awards. She's been loyal to the system that, in theory, should reward that consistency. But now, her influence is being eclipsed by a player who's redefining success in real time and doing it completely outside the league's control. The envy? It's not just about money. It's about power, visibility, control. Clark is leveraging her fame into independence. That's the threat. While the WNBA scrambles to address internal issues, declining attendance, union conflicts, and a growing disconnect between league messaging and reality, Clark's out there owning boardrooms. She's becoming a symbol of what athlete autonomy actually looks like. She isn't asking for the league to elevate her. She's elevating herself. And that right there, that's the shift. The league has historically operated from a centralized model, where it controls who gets pushed, who gets the brand deals, who gets the spotlight. But that model only works when the athletes need the league to be relevant. Clark doesn't. Her success outside the WNBA is proof that individual branding is stronger than institutional control. That's where the league starts to panic. She's not just a player anymore. She's a brand. And not just a sports brand. A corporate one. A global one. And that reach matters. Her jersey sales span continents. Her name is bigger than the league's. She shows up at business conferences and is received not just as a basketball player, but as a leader, a speaker, a symbol of entrepreneurship. That's a level of influence the WNBA's never seen from one of its own, especially this fast and especially without their direct involvement. For veterans like Aya Wilson, that reality is uncomfortable because it reveals how much of their career was limited by a league that didn't build this kind of structure until someone came along and forced them to see it. It's not that Aya didn't earn her place. She absolutely did. But the system she thrived in didn't offer the same paths Clark has carved out for herself. That's the tension. It's not just that Clark is succeeding. It's that she's succeeding in a way the league didn't prepare for. She's not just competing for MVPs. She's competing for cultural relevance, and she's already won that part of the game. When Clark steps into a room full of executives and delivers a keynote address, she's not doing it to promote the WNBA. She's doing it to grow her brand. That's not something the league can package. It's not something they can claim. And that's where the control slips. Because now, Clark is showing every other athlete exactly how it's done. You don't have to rely on league promotions. You don't have to wait for endorsement scraps. You don't have to hope the media picks up your story. If you have the presence, if you have the momentum, you run with it, even if it takes you away from the court. That's a powerful message, and one that players across the league are watching closely. And for a system built on uniformity, that independence is threatening. Clark is redefining the relationship between players and leagues. She's proving that the league needs her more than she needs it. And if she can continue to grow her empire without needing WNBA infrastructure, what stops the next star from doing the same? That's the long-term concern. The WNBA isn't just losing control and narrative. It's losing its grip on how power functions in women's sports. Clark's success has exposed how vulnerable the league is when it comes to retaining cultural relevance. Her rise happened in parallel with the league's struggles to maintain engagement, fill arenas, and generate sustained buzz beyond one player. Without her, the finals were flat. The storylines disappeared. The seats were empty. And yet, Clark's off-court brand kept rising. This contrast is what makes her success feel so disruptive to the league hierarchy. Because it's not just a side hustle. It's a career path. And it's one that doesn't have a place in the WNBA's old model. Her ability to secure high-profile, high-paying speaking gigs demonstrates her corporate value. These aren't appearances at basketball camps. These are executive events, business panels, national platforms. Clark has positioned herself as someone who transcends the game. And that's not just rare in women's sports. It's unprecedented at this scale. And that's where Aya Wilson's envy comes in. Because for all of her accolades, for all of her accomplishments, the league hasn't created a comparable platform for her. She's a star by WNBA standards, but Clark is a star by global standards. And that gap wasn't created by talent. It was created by branding. Clark's career has become a case study in athlete entrepreneurship. She's built value outside of wins and losses. She's moved the metric of success beyond the court. That's not something every player can do, and it's certainly not something the league ever taught. The WNBA is now at a crossroads. It can either evolve and empower its stars to build independent brands, or it can keep pretending the old structure still works. But Clark has already shown the consequences of being too slow. If the league can't support players on this new path, they'll just build their own. Clark did, and she's thriving. She's not waiting for the league to catch up. She's already ahead, creating a blueprint that future athletes will follow. Because it works. Because it's smart. And because it's liberating. In the meantime, the league continues to face internal friction, PR confusion, and a shrinking margin for error. They need good headlines. They need new fans. And right now, Clark is providing both, but not in a way they can control. That's the real story. Clark's rise isn't about attention. It's about agency. It's about independence. And it's making the league, and some of its biggest names, uncomfortable. Because if she can become this powerful, this fast, without the league's help, then what does that say about the league's value to its stars? It says everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is Caitlin Clark the future of women's sports? Can the league keep up? Or is this the start of a new era where athletes lead and institutions follow? Like the video if you're watching the power shift unfold. Share it with someone still clinging to the old model. And hit subscribe because this isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about who holds the mic, who controls the brand, and who rewrites the rules. Caitlin Clark already started. The WNBA won a star. Caitlin Clark became the star. And now that she's stepping outside the league's walls, building her own empire and rewriting the rules, they don't know what to do with her. She's not just a franchise player. She's a franchise unto herself. While the league spins its wheels trying to fix internal cracks, labor disputes, sagging attendance, fractured narratives, Clark is thriving in an entirely different ecosystem. One the league doesn't own, doesn't understand, and definitely didn't prepare for. Clark didn't wait for the WNBA to hand her an off-season gig. She took the mic, walked into a room full of CEOs and decision-makers, and walked out with a six-figure check and more influence than most of the league's entire marketing budget could buy. She didn't just join the corporate world. She became a corporate entity. And that move? That move has completely unsettled the old guard. Because this isn't just about Clark making money. It's about Clark making moves. Strategic ones. She's separating herself from the system and doing it with the kind of clarity that makes the rest of the league structure look outdated. You want to know why Io Wilson is watching this all unfold with a rising edge of resentment? It's because Clark's success isn't just an outlier, it's a mirror. A mirror showing how the system failed to do for its own stars what Clark did for herself. Wilson is talented, decorated, one of the best to ever touch a WNBA floor. But she was asked to wait, to trust the process, to be patient. And now, all of that patience is starting to feel like a trap. Because here comes Clark, no titles yet, no deep playoff run, and yet she's commanding a spotlight so massive it casts a shadow over the entire league. Not because of favoritism, not because of media bias, but because she understands that modern athletes don't just play the game, they own the brand. And she's owning it. That's the new reality. And it's uncomfortable for a league that's never had to navigate this kind of individual power. The WNBA was built on collectivism, unified messaging, league-first visibility. And for a while, that worked. Until someone like Clark came along and said, "Actually, I don't need your structure. How about my own?" Now, players who played by the book are seeing the book become irrelevant. The envy isn't just emotional. It's professional. Because Clark has cracked a code the league refused to acknowledge even existed. That branding outside of basketball could be more powerful than anything happening inside the arena. That you don't need a championship ring to own the room. You just need relevance, reach, and revenue. And she is all three. When Clark walks onto a stage in front of corporate America, she's not just an athlete. She's a speaker, a cultural figure, a case study in how to monetize fame before it fades. She's not waiting until retirement to figure out her legacy. She's building it now. Meanwhile, the WNBA is still trying to figure out how to market its stars during the season, let alone the off-season. And that's the disconnect. Clark isn't asking them to figure it out. She already has. This is what happens when individual branding outpaces league infrastructure. The system looks small. The rules feel irrelevant. And the veterans start asking questions they don't want to ask out loud. What was all that loyalty really worth? Because the system never gave them this playbook. It never told them they could step away from the court and still dominate headlines. It never empowered them to treat themselves like businesses. And now that Clark's doing it, the whole house of cards is starting to shake. Clark's rise is showing everyone what the league could have done, should have done, and didn't. And that stings. Io Wilson isn't wrong to feel frustrated. She's been loyal. She's been great. She's been everything the league wanted in a star. But she's not being treated like the cultural phenomenon she is. Not like Clark is. And that difference? That's not about talent. It's about branding, timing, strategy. Clark was ready for the moment. She planned for it. And now she's maximizing every inch of it. She's not signing autographs in quiet off-season gyms. She's shaking hands with executives and collecting direct deposits that would make even some NBA players nod in respect. That's not an exaggeration. That's the new landscape of athlete power. One where being marketable, smart, and strategic off the court matters just as much as being elite on it. And for a league that's built its identity on community, unity, and centralized control, this shift is terrifying. Because it means they're no longer the gatekeepers. Clark's brand isn't funneled through WNBA media packages. It lives on Instagram, LinkedIn, highlight reels, press appearances, and sold-out events that have nothing to do with the next tip-off. She's taking the visibility the league helped generate and turning it into a revenue machine they don't own. That's the scariest part for the WNBA. For years, they've tried to create stars who still belong to the league. But Clark's showing that stars don't have to belong to anyone. They can build something for themselves. And once they do, good luck putting them back in a box. That's the model future athletes are going to follow. The WNBA can either accept that or fall further behind. Because Clark isn't an anomaly. She's a preview. The next wave of athletes won't wait for a marketing campaign. They'll make their own. They won't ask for platform access. They'll create it. They'll partner with brands, speak to rooms bigger than arenas, and treat their careers like startups, not just sports contracts. Clark just got there first, and she did it in real time. So yes, there's envy, and it's valid. But it's not just jealousy, it's realization. A realization that the game has changed. The business has changed, and the athletes who understand that will lead, while everyone else scrambles to keep up. The WNBA has a choice to make: evolve with its stars, or watch them evolve without it. Because Clark has already proven she doesn't need the league to build her future. She's doing just fine on her own, and the rest of the league? They'd be smart to follow her lead. Caitlin Clark has done more than build a brand. She's exposed the entire structure of the WNBA. She's peeled back the curtain and shown that the league's model of centralized control, slow burn stardom, and collective messaging is not just outdated. It's inefficient. It's holding players back. And now, players and fans alike are starting to ask, why are we still playing by these rules when someone just proved they're no longer necessary? Clark didn't wait for the league to make her famous. She didn't wait for a shoe deal tied to a league partnership. She didn't wait for ESPN to decide if she was worth a 30-second highlight package. She took her moment and turned it into ownership. She is now a case study in modern athlete empowerment, and the league is scrambling to keep pace with the very player they should be learning from. Let's be honest, there's been tension in the WNBA for a while. Veteran players have been vocal, sometimes bitter, about the attention Clark's received. Some of it is understandable. They've been grinding in this league for years with little media coverage, modest salaries, and limited opportunities. Now here comes a rookie who's immediately eclipsed the rest of the league in sponsorships, coverage, and financial power. That's not easy to swallow, but it's not her fault. It's the league's fault for not creating a better environment for its stars in the first place. It's the system that let too many great players operate in obscurity. And now that Clark has broken through that ceiling, it feels like a threat to those who have spent years bumping up against it with no exit strategy. That's the root of the Io Wilson tension. It's not personal, it's systemic. Wilson has done everything the league ever asked. She's been an MVP, a champion, a media face. She showed up, performed, and led. But for all of that, her off-court earning potential never came close to what Clark achieved before she even played her 20th professional game. Why? Because Clark didn't rely on the WNBA. She made herself indispensable outside of it. Her speaking engagements at top-tier business events are the clearest example. She's not just showing up to sign autographs at a team store. She's walking into rooms with high-level executives and being paid more for 1 hour of speaking than many players will earn from their base salary all year. That's not a side hustle. That's strategic career building, and it's disrupting everything. Clark's brand isn't confined to basketball. She's crossed over. She's shaping the conversation about athlete value, not just in women's basketball, but in all of professional sports. That crossover is what makes her rise so significant and so destabilizing for the league's old guard. Because once you cross over, you no longer need the machine. The machine needs you. That's the real threat. Not Clark's success, her independence. The WNBA doesn't know how to handle players who operate beyond its control. And Clark is making it clear she doesn't just operate beyond it. She thrives there. She's establishing that an athlete's value isn't defined by how many points they score, or how many titles they win, or even how many all-star nods they collect. It's defined by how they leverage their moment, and how they build beyond it. That's a reality Io Wilson and other top players are being forced to confront. Not because Clark did anything wrong, but because she's done everything differently. And it's working. She's created a template for the next generation of players, and that template doesn't require the WNBA's permission. It doesn't even require its platform. It's powered by social presence, business acumen, media strategy, and unapologetic ambition. The league is used to controlling the arc of its stars. It elevates players selectively, cautiously, incrementally. But Clark's ascent was immediate. She didn't wait for a rollout. She came in with her own momentum, and she hasn't stopped since. The league didn't build that. It just happened to benefit from it for now. Because the longer the WNBA fails to evolve, the more likely it is to lose players who can do what Clark is doing. If one rookie can shift the balance of power this dramatically, what happens when others follow? What happens when the next generation of athletes comes in knowing that they don't need to climb the slow ladder the league set for them? What happens when independence becomes the standard, not the exception? The answer is clear. The WNBA loses control, not of the athletes themselves, but of the narrative, the visibility, the relevance. That control has already started to fade, and unless the league starts adapting to this new player-driven model, it's only going to get worse. Because Clark's rise has exposed the gap between what the league says it's about and what it's actually structured to support. They talk about growth, empowerment, and giving players a platform. But Clark showed up and had to create her own platform because the existing one wasn't built for someone with that kind of reach. It was built to contain, not to expand. And now that Clark has expanded beyond it, the WNBA can either collaborate or be left behind. Clark isn't just an anomaly. She's a warning. She's a sign that the model has to change. That athletes are going to demand more than a league that barely supports off-season opportunity or struggles to fill arenas for its biggest games. They want freedom. They want real influence. They want ownership. Clark isn't asking for it. She took it. And that's why this moment is so uncomfortable for players like Wilson, because it forces a reevaluation of everything they were told. That patience, loyalty, and performance would eventually lead to recognition and reward. But that path was never built to produce a Caitlin Clark-level moment. The structure was never designed for that kind of individual breakout. So now, Clark becomes the blueprint, the standard, the disruptor. She's building wealth, expanding influence, and growing global reach, all without having to ask for it. And she's doing it at a time when the WNBA is publicly struggling with its most basic responsibilities, keeping fans engaged, improving visibility, managing internal conflict, and staying culturally relevant. In many ways, Clark is the league's relevance right now. But that relevance is built on a foundation the league didn't create and can't control. That makes her both the most valuable asset and the biggest existential threat. The smartest thing the league could do right now is let go of the idea that it can contain players like her. Because it can't. What it can do is evolve quickly, invest in independent branding support, restructure its business model to account for players with massive off-court platforms, adapt to a world where players can outgrow the league faster than the league can grow itself. That's the choice. And it's not theoretical. It's happening now. Clark has already shown what's possible. And if the league doesn't embrace this shift, it's going to lose the next Clark. And the next one after that. If you see the change coming too, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the WNBA pivot to embrace athlete independence? Or is the league stuck in a structure that no longer serves its stars? Like the video if you're following Caitlin Clark's rise beyond basketball. Share this with someone who still thinks league control equals power. And hit subscribe, because Clark's story is still being written. And the next chapter is not going through the league office.